Sweatshop is a 2009 slasher horror film, kind of a monster film-ish that you can also call it in a sense, because of a lot of the villains that are going on here. But this certainly is definitely a slasher at heart for sure. Wow, that's a lot of exclamations there. One hammer, no prisoners. How's that for an exclamation? They are not kidding with this one, let me tell you. This is directed by Stacy Davidson, who is a dude, by the way. I did look that up, and has a slew of a cast. Not any that I'm too familiar with, but you got a ton of people in here. One of my favorite things to do in films is track everybody's name and put a name to a face. So lots of that going on. And released in 2009, I believe I already said. Screen Media. Screen Media Films released this one. They say 2011, but my research on the internet tells me 2009. So, by the way, I'm going to be trying this video as well with a little bit more light going on. I usually like to try to get kind of a darker look for Cellar reviews, kind of more Cellar look, but I'm trying out some different lighting things to see what works better. So this one's going to be a little bit different than the other ones that I've posted previously. We will see what works, but synopsis-wise, you get your basic slasher story, as much as one can be. Start off with this police shootout, and he basically starts, blasting off these kind of zombie-looking chicks, and they're going rabid like you would see in a typical, 28 Days Later style infection film, and you start to see where is this going from, a cover like this, which I did buy blind, so this was my first watch. And yeah, definitely misleading from the cover, and definitely misleading from the back screen with the song that plays. It's not playing right now, but the song that's playing is ridiculous compared to the atmosphere and vibe of this film. Does not match at all. But you get this police shootout. He's shooting out what looks like these rabid zombie girls, and they're all nude and running around this warehouse looking place, and shoots them down, and then credits open, and it flashes forward to 6 hours later, where these bunch of kids, they look like, kind of cyber neon punk, are entering this same place, this warehouse, and breaking in there, because they want to make a rave, or host a rave, an illegal rave. You've got CDs, like compact disc, you've got boom boxes, you've got complete 90s attire. It looks like a scene from like Blade. And you've got that type of music. You've got aggro tech, hard techno, very industrial music going on throughout the whole thing. A lot of breakdancing scenes too, and the way everybody's dressed just feels completely 90s-esque. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing this as a 90s film for sure. And yeah, they get set up for this rave. There's a scene with Lolly and Scotty. Scotty is the biggest douchebag in this film. He's very punk looking, also 90s, got a massive ass mohawk and few lip rings, and he's always trying to get with all the chicks. And Lolly is clearly into girls. So he asks her, he's like, "What kind of lesbo are you?" And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Are you the lesbo that likes the pussy? Are you the lesbo that likes the pussy and especially the attention, but just can't stay away from the cock?" And she's like, "Yeah, you're a creep," or whatever the fuck she says to him. And later on, it's explained that she actually does like the cock a little bit. But anyways, we will get there. These characters are setting up for the rave, and this Lolly girl is the first one who ends up being killed, because she goes into a sex scene with this guy named Wade. And Wade is, I'm pretty sure he's the runner of the whole thing. The guy behind the masks, the scenes, controlling everything and building up this rave. And this guy is the slimiest, biggest guy, like big literally, sweaty, with the glasses. pervert you've got in the movie. And they are caught by Jade, and Jade is another lesbian girl who is your typical raver, green long hair, and very sexy. Pretty much all the chicks are in this movie are sexy, and all lesbian, funny enough. No guys getting lucky in this one, well, except for the slimy greaseball. I'm just kidding. This film is all people being ripped apart and then fucked, or whichever way you want to go on that one. Not kidding. Oh boy. Don't you want to see this film? It's not for the squeamish. They're caught by Jade, and Jade obviously has feelings for Lolly. You can tell, and Lolly's a complete bitch because she's making it she's taking Wade's vision away so he can't see that Jade caught them, and she's like, oh yeah, like pretending to love it and everything. So catty bitches. Jade gets all upset. Well, this is the first kill of the film, so Molly gets absolutely slaughtered. Wade gets away. He doesn't notice the killer's there yet, but she gets slaughtered. Attacked by these zombie girls first, but absolutely mauled by your main killer, which is this guy with biggest hammer you've ever seen, and welding mask, which is a great look for a killer. And he's huge, like massive. We're talking probably twice the size of Jason from the Friday the 13th 2009 remake. Came out the same year, funny enough. And this guy's just brutal. He pulls no punches. This guy starts ripping her face right apart, jaws coming off, ripping the intestines out. You're set up for exactly what to expect going forward in this film. It is brutal, to say the least. They have two of their friends missing, and you realize that the two friends that are missing are Ghost and Brandy, because they keep mentioning them all the time, and they're waiting up for them to show up. And you realize that these are the characters that were at the beginning of the film with the cop shootout. So that wraps that little bit up. And then Kimmy starts to go look for Molly and Jade, I believe, at that time. No, she doesn't look for Jade. She just looks for Molly because Molly's been missing for a while. And Kim's death is another brutal one. It looks straight out of Hostel. Looks straight out of the Hostel films. She's tied up to a friggin' table with like barbed wire on her hands. And with the killer, the way he looks like a killer that would come straight out of Hostel with the welder mask. And there's scenes too where the killer's walking around. The screen kind of turns into a red square, and like a dirty red square that kind of looks like his peripheral vision and heavy breathing as he's walking around doing his slang things. They don't do it too much because I find if they did it too much, it would definitely get repetitive and annoying as hell. But they do it enough to make it cool, not make it annoying. So that was good. Kim's death was good too. She is laying on that table, and then he takes his hammer and he just crushes her legs, and leaves her upper top intact still. Great stuff. And the practical effects, whoever did them, perfect, mint. I didn't see too much CGI in this film, and if they had any, they hit it well, and it was probably more of like gunfire and stuff like that. When it comes to the gore, it was pretty much just practical effects that I saw in this. I mean, if you like your practical like I do, it's a high recommendation just right there. Then we go back to Jade, who caught Lolly and Wade earlier. I'm probably going to be referring Molly as Molly, even though her name is Lolly, like lollipop, which is way more fitting, but I don't know why I keep saying Molly. I even kept going with Molly before I turned on the subtitles, but anyway, we're back to Jade, and there's a funny scene with her. She's being all depressed over what she just saw, and then she discovers some poison, and she starts to get smart and take some revenge and pour some poison into some beer bottles and mark those beer bottles with an X. and she wants to feed it to, or to give it to Wade, who was banging her girl, and this guy named Kenny comes along. Kenny pretty much looks like the most average guy. He looks like the guy that doesn't fit into this group because everybody's completely wacky, looking all 90s, neon punk, agro-tech style. And then there's just Kenny with like a white muscle shirt. Skinny white guy with a muscle shirt. But he comes along and he grabs, I think he grabs the X beer. Or no, he doesn't. He doesn't grab the X beer. Because Wade comes along and he happens to grab the X beer. But Jade starts to panic at this point because she doesn't want to get caught poisoning a dude and having to explain herself. And Jade is caught by Kenny and Wade listening to country music right before this wave. She has headphones the whole time, and Kenny's wondering what she's listening to, and she's listening to country. And then it turns out he's also a country fan, and it's hilarious because of all things that she's listening to, being that she's about to set up for a rave is country. I found that very, very hilarious. Wade starts making fun of her like shit because he's a douchebag, and Kenny has the feels for her, so he starts sticking up for her, and he likes country as well. So they get to it. Wade and Kenny get into a fight, and Wade ends up not drinking the beer. So Jade and Kenny get frisky with some country music and weed in a car, because there's cars in this warehouse somehow. I don't know how they got them in there, but they're there. And things get sloppy in there. There's one thing about the X beers that annoys me because there's not much continuity to how they're placed in the bucket. And you see, first of all, it starts with one X beer. This is like a minor thing, but it annoyed the fuck out of me because there was no continuity to it. Kenny ends up, after he's getting head, picking up a beer from the ice bucket, and it didn't show the beer that rolled off after the fight with Wade, that Wade lost, going back into the ice bucket. So how is he reaching for a beer with an X on it from the car? It's just dumb. It's just dumb. And then later on in the film, this keeps happening. More X beers come out of nowhere, so apparently she made multiple of them. It's not explained why. It doesn't show her doing it. It's stupid if she did. Beers appear out of nowhere. Little thing that aggravated the shit out of me, but had to mention that one because, well, it's obvious. So he reaches for the beer, and he's about to open it, but then Killer comes along and takes off his head after he was getting head. Ha! See what I did there? Again, perfect practical effect with a head slice, because you get the entire neck and like part of his bottom of his mouth, so you got some sloppy ass bottom jaw things going on, and it looks fantastic. It looks brilliant. Then we got a kill on Jade, who runs away, and this kill, she runs away into, I believe it's an elevator, but this elevator is designed where it's completely metal walls, like the ones that go up and down like 2 floors or whatever. And it's a pretty big one, so Buddy goes in there and he's got her by the neck, he's dragging her all over the place, and he I forget if he uses the hammer on her head or just his bare hand, but he somehow ends up throwing her head face first into the metal, and the metal is full of holes. It's like mesh looking of metal fence kind of thing, and just the biggest, most epic, most beautiful, most horrific, you believe I use the word beautiful on that, most disgusting, like slimy, gutsy splash of skin and brain and juice through the metal gate or whatever it was. It was for a horror film, for a slasher film. The reason I said monster film too was because of the zombie girls, but they are never explained why. I think what happened is this killer with the mask, the welding mask, I think he just drugs these girls up to the point where they become rabid, That's what I kind of figured, because they're in white dresses, they have these long black hair, they look all Samara from The Ring, and they look like if Samara from The Ring was in 28 Days Later infected. And I think, yeah, he's just, drugging them up to, rabidness. So yeah, there's the head smash with Jade. At this point, people are still setting up for the rave, believe it or not. Nobody has, outside in the rave area, has noticed that there's a killer on the loose. And they're still setting up for this, still music going on, whatnot. I mentioned the X beer already, it still keeps going. Wade decides to go have some fun with Kim. This is a good one, because as I mentioned, Kimmy on the table that looked like hostile, I said she got her entire bottom half smashed up. Well, Wade is wasted and he wants to bang her from behind. He can barely walk, but how are you so drunk that you not notice half of a woman on a table? Like, half of a woman on a table who has, she still has bone on her legs, because apparently this hammer just destroys your skin but not your bones. Movie logic. That's Sweatshop logic anyway. It's a great movie. I'm not dissing it. I swear. I'm not dissing it. But I am going to pick on funny ass scenes like that. So he's wanting to bang this girl who's alive. Kimmy's alive. Okay? She can barely speak, but her lips are moving and she's still crying. She's alive. With 3/4 of a body? I don't know. I'll do the math later on that one. So he's trying to get it. He can't get it up because he's been drinking too much and hasn't noticed that this chick has barely no legs, and is half mauled or more. And then the killer goes after him, captures him, captures Scotty, the douchebag, and captures Charlie, and they get nailed to a table by their hands. Just nailed by their hands. And which leads to the funniest, well, not the funniest scene in the movie, I can't say it's the funniest, but the funniest conversation between Scotty and Wade, who are brothers. And they're both rednecks. I mean, Scotty is like the more brave guy with the mohawk, but Wade is just your fat hillbilly greaseball pig, basically, who just wants to fuck anything, and apparently rape half of girls and not even know. But wow, that sounds disgusting when I say it. Sometimes I describe these films and I know what I'm going to say about them, but when the words come out of my mouth, I just think about it even more, and it's like, did I actually just experience a scene of that? Did I actually just see that happen? Because, saying it, but oh my god, this film is so much fun. Yeah, they start to get tortured one by one. Wade starts to reveal that he has kids. Scotty, to the killer, and that's another trope that people is like, please, I have kids. Because since when has somebody escaped death from a killer by saying, please, I have children, don't kill me, I have children? Never. It never happens. But that seems to be the only thing that people in horror movies or action movies or whatever seem to use to want to convince the murderer not to kill them. I have kids. I don't know if a murderer has ever cared, but anyway, he's like, and then Scott's like, no, he never has, he doesn't even have kids, his relationship is miserable, and he's like, no, I kept telling you I've had chicks, and I do have a kid somewhere, I have a kid somewhere, and they're going back and forth on their sex lives, and Scotty ends up confessing before, both of them go to hell, that he had sex with Wade's wife, which is his sister-in-law. And oh, craziness. It's the most hilarious conversation in the movie, for sure. Conversation. I won't say scene, because there's some pretty funny ass stuff that happens too. And I wouldn't even say this is a horror comedy. This maybe is a black comedy-ish, but this is a slasher movie, hands down. I wouldn't. This is a slasher movie with monster elements and some comedic effects going on. Black comedic effects for sure. And Charlie gets away. She ends up being the final girl. I definitely wasn't expecting her to be the final girl. I mean, she's not that big. Well, I would say she's the hottest girl. So maybe that's why. But I certainly wasn't expecting her to be. I would definitely give it to a lot of the other girls that came up previously. But she ends up being the final girl, and she runs to the rave room where everybody showed up. That's another thing I wasn't expecting. All the kids showed up to the rave and they're grooving to the music that they left playing, and they they're just they're dancing away. Charlie is all hurt and escaped a killer, and everybody thinks she's high. Another thing about raves, at this one, all these kids are laughing at this girl who's clearly saying, "Please help me." And I do know a little thing or two about raves, being a former DJ or having DJed in the past, that people don't really leave you hanging if you're asking for help. It's a very tight community, and they like to make sure that people are actually safe and good. So if this girl was looking like she was in pain or in trouble at any moment, I would think even in the 90s that somebody there would help, not just stand there and laugh at her like they were. But then the killer with the massive hammer comes, and he starts to, of course, murder everybody in the rave, and it's a 5-minute shit show of blood splatter going everywhere and heads and all kinds of shit. Which made me wonder, why didn't he target Charlie? Charlie was weakened, and she's in the middle of the rave. And wouldn't he get her first? Because she was almost escaping, and she's certainly a witness. So I would think that he would get her first and then start murdering the shit out of everybody. But he doesn't even give a shit about her. He just starts whacking away at everybody else. And she, luckily, or again with movie magic, ends up getting completely past all these butchered ravers and maniac the size of a house with a hammer the size of a car, and ends up escaping. So she leaves the front door and the gate slams shut, and then you just hear screaming inside, and she bolts it to the right. So ends up being the final girl. Not much of a final girl if she would have died, right? So you have to make her live. But with actual logic, you would think that the killer would get her first out of a group of everybody else, but nope. Gotta make her the final girl. So that was Sweatshop. Man, I recommend this. It's a great film. It's low budget, so the budget's not there. I don't know how much Screen Media Films releases, and I did look up some of the stuff that Stacy Davidson has done, and definitely like your lower budget stuff. But man, for what it is, the practical effects, that's where all the money went. Had to be. Like the practical effects are just tier 1, like perfect practical effects. This is a film you just watch for the gore. The acting is kind of mediocre. You don't need great acting in here. The characters are fun enough. So if you like enjoyable characters and you like rave scenes, which you don't get too much in horror films, and the only one I ever thought of is the one in The Collection, right at the beginning of The Collection, where everybody gets slaughtered in there. Spoiler alert, but yeah, great film. Weird Blu-ray. I hate these thicker Blu-ray discs. They drive me crazy. But yeah, I found this for $10 online, and I decided to check it out simply because of the cover, and I had a blast with it. So that's my Sweatshop experience. Absolute shit show of a film. I'm pretty sure you know that if you've gotten this far. And yeah, if you want to follow my Instagram, that would be Morgan Film Fan as well. Or no, sorry, if you want to follow my Instagram, that is Life is a Playground 89. I also do a lot of film reviews on there. And I'm bringing out a lot of Cellar reviews on here. That's what I like to do most. But look out for other series of reviews as well on all different kinds of film. I do all films on this channel. It's not just horror, but since horror is one of my favorite genres, I focus on that a lot. But I review everything on here, so subscribe to Morgan Film Fan and check it out if you like. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, and I recommend Sweatshop if you can find it. It was $10 when I bought it, so American, $10 American. I'm a Canadian guy. But $10 American, can't go wrong if you like your horror films, and if you like them sleazy and trashy and gory as hell, and absolutely filled with sex and lots of lesbians. My God, was there a lesbian scene in it? There was 3 lesbians in this film and not a lesbian scene. I just thought of that. Wow. Anyway, Sweatshop, 2009. Check it out. Cheers.